Welcome into the Sports Subjective, the unofficial podcast of the Pirates. Ladies and gentlemen, our favorite Pirate, Kyle from LaGrange Barber. How are you?
What's going on, Dave?
And a guy, I'll tell you what, he does it all. Ladies and gentlemen, he is 409. It's Bubba Rosenbaum. What's up?
409, yep.
You do it all.
I'm doing well.
409.
409.
We actually have a great podcast, I promise. And we're going to have George on. I believe we're going to have a George on. We'll see if we can get George of the Jungle, Curious George, George Strait, George Koonce, George Jones, George W. Bush. Am I leaving out?
We were supposed to have George Koonce. George Koonce, I think we might have had a miscommunication from Central Time to Eastern Time. He's out in the Midwest. So we're ad-libbing, guys. And Dave is actually working to see if he can get George Strait on as a replacement for George Koonce. So
yeah, we'll see.
If not him, then maybe Curious George, and if not Curious George, perhaps by Curious George.
What about George of the Jungle? Watch out for that tree.
Well, you could get him.
I'm working on it. I've got the phone number right now to see if he'll come on. George, will you come on with us?
George Strait? All right.
He said, "Excuse me, but you've got my chair." He's gonna take his chair back. This is actually George Strait's chair in the back. Got rid of it.
All right.
Anyway, let's have some fun tonight. By the way, speaking of George Strait, before we talk Pirate news, what is your favorite George Strait song, or do you have some George Strait songs that you love?
We were randomly discussing George Strait before the show because we're supposed to have George Koonce on, so that's why it's coming up. But favorite George Strait song, Amarillo by Morning, The Chair, Heartland, Easy Come, Easy Go. There's one I'm trying to think of. If I Know Me.
That's great, yeah.
That's what comes to mind.
How about you, Bubba?
One of the first that comes to mind, the Fireman. All those that Kyle mentioned are certainly ones that I like as well. What is it? I'm trying to think. There's one, I'm Carrying Your Love With Me. That's another good one.
Yep.
Yeah. For me, gosh, there's so many. You Look So Good in Love. I love that one. All the ones you mentioned, plus All My Exes Live in Texas. I like Give It Away. I love I Hate Everything. In fact, we were just talking about pre-show.
Yeah, I Hate Everything is apropos for 2020.
That is great. That is a great theme song for 2020. Oh my gosh, man, that is great. We are blessed. Yes, we're blessed, but I hate everything because we're only going to have like 4 or 5 games of football, maybe. I'm just having fun with you, Kyle, because you know how I'm very frustrated.
4 or 5. You mean 3, 2, 1?
What? I'm actually
forcing 4 or 5. You maybe we'll do the FCS thing and play 4 games.
I'm just sourcing my inner Kyle tonight. I like to have fun. It's fun. But you know why? Because we don't have comedy. If we don't joke about it, we'll lose our ever-loving minds. So.
Well, Dave, if we play the UCF game, then we might not be able to play the Georgia State game. And if we play the Georgia State game, we might not be able to play the Tulane game. So at this rate, what we'll just do is we close the season with SMU. So we'll just play SMU and go from there.
Well, so basically what you're saying is play every other week, and that gives us enough time.
What I'm saying is play the last game of the year, SMU.
Mm-hmm.
Then we played the last game, then we can work backwards from there.
I mean, I think we're right now.
It makes perfect sense based on other logic.
Yeah. Well, we need to have a game September 19th, and I hope the administration
September 19th. There's no question about it. The only caveat would be there's two. Are the guys going to be ready? Because we are enforcing the COVID testing and the contact tracing by the book. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but I do not think, and I'm saying it here right now, I do not think other schools, not all other schools, but I do not think some other schools are enforcing contact tracing. There's just no way. You have other schools that have just as many players getting sick, yet they're continuing to practice after a couple of days. I do not think contact tracing is being enforced to the letter of the law like it is in East Carolina. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing at East Carolina, but I'm saying if we're going to do it to the letter of the law, so does everybody else. And that's, just a fact, Jack. But if we can get back practicing by next weekend, we need to have a game September 19th. It is a suicide mission, in my opinion, to put these boys on the field, the 26th against UCF, a top 25 football team, a team that some people project to go undefeated, a team that's going to start the season on the 19th against Georgia Tech. And we haven't played anybody. And we're going to step out on the field and play those guys for our first game of the year without getting our feet wet. I think that'd be a huge mistake. The other one caveat I would say to not playing on the 19th is there's not a lot of FCS opponents or FBS opponents, for that matter, that need a game on the 19th. There is some.
Which ones do?
Huh?
Which ones do? I mean, tell everybody here.
Eastern Kentucky is trying to play a full schedule. They're open on the 19th. They're not.
Western Carolina?
Western Carolina, I spoke with someone about that earlier. The reason they have 2 games scheduled for November is because their administration does not want them to play before October. Late September against East Carolina might be able to change their mind, though. I hear Chattanooga's available. I believe the Mercer Bears are playing, and they're available. I believe one of the Texas schools I know is available. There's an FCS that weekend. Igo, I don't know if I'm spilling beans. I shouldn't. Igo says he's compiling a list, so hopefully he'll have that article out.
VoiceOfColors.net, folks. Yeah, join it today.
And maybe he's not going to release that anytime soon, but I mean, maybe I shouldn't even brought it up. But he has said he's compiling a list, so that's a good article. If he doesn't do it, we should of potential opponents. I just
love Igo.
Research. Bubba, do the research.
Igo is the best. He's a friend of the show, and the very first guest, and he does a tremendous job. I always joke with him all the time. I bet now even more that he never sleeps. I'm like, dude, when do you sleep?
and there's probably a couple of FBSs out there that may be open on the 19th that still could have a game. I haven't checked that. I was mainly looking at FCS opponents. I saw
I don't think you said this, Kyle, but as far as FCS opponents, Campbell's now full. And they have App State, Georgia Southern, and then also now Wake Forest and Coastal Carolina.
Yeah.
Quick game.
Yeah, they scheduled Coastal last minute. If we'd have just done this a little sooner, we could have got Campbell for the 19th. One thing I'll say is, I was going to say something. I lost what I had it, and it's gone. Guys, go ahead. It'll come back to me.
Well, the very fact for me is, like I was telling you, Kyle, last night off air, we were talking about, post press conference. We really believe that this year is going to, and I'm sorry, Bub, I didn't get a chance to tell you this. We feel like, and Johnny Gardner, thank you, Johnny, Western Carolina is available. Thank you, Johnny. We were going to.
We talked about that, but their administration says they don't want to play until October. But like I said, late September is pretty close to October, and an opportunity to play the Pirates might change their mind.
Yeah, and the way I feel about it is, guys, is the very fact that we need to have plans of, even if it's tentative, even if we have to wait till a week or two before we sign the contract,
sure,
have teams out there that say, okay, a gentleman's agreement, or what we have to do is say, we're going to play, we want you on September 19th, and they may have players that have COVID-19 or all the things that they have to pull out, or we do, whatever the case, but we need to make sure that we actually have 12 games ready to go, because we may only get to play 9 or 10.
I'd take 11 at this point. Quite honestly, I'd take 10. We're down to 9. I know that.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's my point, is that more than likely we won't be able to play 12. You play 12, you have 12 scheduled, but that'll give you 10, because you're going to have some that are canceled. And then we'll get to the point, I feel like if we wait to November, December to kind of see how things go, that'll be too late. So we'll have 5 or 6 ball games. And that's what I worry about. Marshall,
we're planning on rescheduling it. The only time, unless some dates are changed, and that could happen, the only time to schedule is if neither one of us are in our championship games. Now, I personally believe, like the SEC, like the Sun Belt, and I think maybe the ACC has done, I think the Conference USA and the American Championship games will be moved from December 5th to give a chance to make up games. So if you move that from December 5th and you just put the game on December 5th and we're done with it. But we need to play this Marshall game. It needs to be played. But before that, we definitely need to try to. Bubba must have had to do something. We definitely need to find an opponent.
Working with George Koonce right now. So
okay, we definitely need to find an opponent for the 19th and give these guys some playing time before they step on the field against the juggernaut in the UCF Knights. And again, I'm not picking on John Gilbert.
It's not an easy time, right? Exactly. It's not a
difficult time, and I respect John. He's a nice guy, but I think we have different philosophies on how to approach things. And he said yesterday, well, if he'd have went ahead and scheduled another game for the 5th, for example, we would be canceling 2 games or rescheduling 2 games. Well, so what? What's the difference between scheduling?
Everybody's
yeah, I mean,
that's the world we live in.
Right now, we're not playing until the 26th. What's the difference if we weren't? I mean, so I don't agree with the philosophy of you don't play on the 19th because you want to make sure you can play on the 26th. That does not ring true to me, because by that logic, shouldn't UCF not play Georgia Tech then? I mean, we're not playing just a conference-only schedule. Every game's important. And if I'm going to be honest with you, if you want to push a game to the end of the season, that UCF might not be a bad one to do. I mean, you want to play an FCS opponent, and then we have to miss a UCF game and play Georgia State. That might not be the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
But
can you see that? Oh my God! I'm not this. I know it sounds bad to joke about, but it's like, yeah, we've got 50 COVID cases going on right now. Well, I guess we have to miss the to move that game back. But we've got to the biggest thing is just, like I said, we got to schedule 12, maybe 13 games. Because
I know what I was going to bring up a minute ago, Dave, and I needed Bubba on here for this. I saw a post, and it may have been a joke on a message board, that there was somebody had petitioned the NCAA to allow Division I schools to play any college at any level this year. Division II, junior college, whatever, just this year only, and counted towards bowl eligibility. And it may have been a joke, but I do wonder about that. I mean, hell, if that's the case, if the NCAA approved that, let's get Hargrave Military Academy in here, beat the snot
really,
and then let's move on. And Morgan Ayler said it. Morgan's the dad of Holton Ahlers. He said yesterday we need to play a game on the 19th.
Yeah.
He wants that offensive line to learn how to block before they go try to guard UCF to protect his son. So
no doubt about it.
And just for selfish reasons too, man. Whether we can have fans or no fans, the more Pirate football to watch, the better. And it's going to be tough for me sitting here these next 3 weeks waiting to play, watching other teams play. I don't know a lot of other fans feel the same way. We'll see. Gilbert did not rule out playing a school on the 19th. He did not flat out say we're not going to do it. I know
Mike Houston wants to play.
If he can get his team back on the field soon, I think he definitely does. So we'll see what happens.
In other words, early next week, then we would probably play
or late next week. Or late. I think even by late next week,
okay,
we would be fine to play on the 19th. But I believe they started back not practicing. I'm sorry. They started being able to go work out today and condition.
Yeah.
So my guess, if they allow them to start conditioning today, we'll be back on the practice field by the middle of next week.
All right, we have a very special guest right now. It's not George Strait, but we have, ladies and gentlemen, the Doctor of Defense is here. We have George Koonce. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Can you hear me okay?
We got you.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
The classic Eastern and Central Time mix-up.
Yep. Well, thank you for having me on, and thank you for your patience.
No problem.
Looking forward to catching up with you guys. You guys do a great job, and I'm just honored and privileged to be able to talk something that not only am I in love with, but I have an obsession with the Pirate athletics. So let's get right into it.
All right, if you can pull your phone down, and there you go. You're perfect. There you go.
Hey, good night. We can see you, George.
Awesome. Yeah, George, what an honor to have you back on. You're one of our favorites, and obviously ECU Hall of Famer. We're going to talk about your career, talk about what's going on. But I want to ask you right now, how are you doing? Because one of the things we've been very concerned about is our friends, and obviously with COVID-19 going on, and we're very worried about football and if we're going to have games. I know that sounds so maybe some folks shallow, but it really is a big deal, as you know, in Eastern North Carolina.
It is. It is a very big deal. It's on everybody's minds at this time across the country. There's a lot of. I don't think there's one silver bullet. I think a lot of different universities and conferences are kind of shooting from the hip. Even professional teams, they don't have the. It's not monolithic. Everybody's kind of seem like to me are doing their own thing.
Yeah.
Speaking of pro teams, what's with your team with the Packers? Have you heard about Lambeau Field? Are there going to be any fans, or what's going on there in Green Bay?
Well, just like any other team in the National Football League, they have 16 regular season games and 8 home games. The first 2 home games at Lambeau will be played without any fans.
Wow.
And then after that, they're going to reassess the situation. But the organization did reach out to the season ticket holders and ask them, will you be willing to put a deposit down for the following 6 games? I know 2 of the games will not be any fans, but the following 6, would you be willing to come to the games or put a deposit down? And 80% of the fans say we'll take a pass this year.
Really?
Wow.
Take a pass.
Wow.
That is a big difference in the mentality in some different parts of the country, even, because every Pirate fan I've talked to said we won't go to the games.
Hey, Kyle.
You won't. I didn't hear you. You said you want to go, or you won't go. I didn't hear what you said.
Want to go.
They want to go.
Yes. So Pirate fans do not want to pass on the season.
Well, maybe we need to come see you, George, and go to a game at Lambeau Field. It's a hard ticket to get, but maybe not this year.
Well, I think this would be the perfect time to go. But I do know they have 165,000 waiting on their season ticket list. Good
point. Yeah.
They seat 81,441, and 80% said we'll pass this year, and that speaks volumes, because the Packers are owned by 360,000 shareholders, which is governed by a 43-person board. So
I find that interesting, and it does show the difference in the thought process from different regions of the country, because, like I said, East Carolina fans want to be at the games. SEC fans are raring to go. That's interesting to me. I'm kind of the thought process that if a mask can protect me at work, then it should be able to protect me at a football stadium.
Yeah, one of the things that we're going to have to be patient on is certainly with COVID-19 is that very thing is about wearing them. Make sure everybody wears a mask. You have obviously social distancing. That's a question that comes to mind, George. We've been talking about that. I'm debating on with over 51,000 now at Dowdy Ficklin. What's the right percentage? Is it Bubba just threw out the percentage of 25%, 12,700, right, Bubba? Shy of 13,000 would be okay. I'm not a good numbers guy. Bubba is, George, but and you have your PhD. But 12,700 will be 25%, and then it becomes pretty much that's about how many season tickets we've sold, right, guys? Around 13,000.
Gilbert indicated on his From the Helm letter today, that athletic director John Gilbert, he indicated that we may not even start off at a percentage if Governor Cooper allows for fans for that first game, as we stand right now against UCF. We may actually start off with parents and family members of the players and then scale up. But bottom line is, if we stay in phase 2 and don't enter phase 3, we're not going to have any fans.
Right. And you mentioned earlier that at work you're allowed to, you wear a mask
Correct.
And that mask should protect you at the
stadium.
At the stadium. Are you yelling and screaming and saying purple, gold at work?
No, but I am in an enclosed building with 50 some other people in a small area versus outside in a 50,000 seat stadium. And if you're going to have 12,000 people in a 50,000 seat stadium and you can't social distance them, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, that's the way that the last few years we've only had maybe 18 or 20,000 anyway. But it's really tough, George. I know that you've been a part of athletic administration now for a good while. How difficult is it to make these decisions? I mean, this is something that athletic administrators have never had to deal with before.
Well, I think it's a very difficult decision because there's going to be a ripple effect. And I look at an athletic department just like any other department on campus, whether it's your med school or allied health or your construction management. It's a department. A department is a department. It's just that athletics is more. There's a section dedicated every day in the newspaper called the sports section. So there's a lot more fanfare when it comes to athletics, but I think it's a very tough situation, and we just got to be careful because for so many years we've been using the word student athlete, and it would be a shame to me if they dropped the word student athlete, and when we tout amateurism and you just calling the guys athletes because they're taking classes online, but yet they're playing games on Saturday. Because I thought when I was at East Carolina and playing college, it was a holistic experience, not just practicing, but also the classroom face-to-face and also a social aspect. So if we taking all that away and we're just playing on Saturdays, I don't know if that's a student athlete. I may be wrong, and if I am, correct me on that.
Well, one thing is, George, they actually before a lot of the athletes now, even before, well, we had COVID obviously, but a lot of these guys are taking our men and women are taking classes online. I know that yes, we don't have we just lost obviously the Pirates with the dorms, people going home, like that, but they haven't.
Dave, the thing is, all students are taking classes online right now.
Say it again now.
All students are taking classes online right now. I guess
right, that's what he was saying.
The difference is the student athletes are being asked to stay and practice and play football games. But as far as the online, I mean, that's everybody right now. At least at East Carolina, I know at some schools they're still doing in-person classes. Some schools are doing in-person classes and not playing sports. But at all the state-funded, all the UNC system schools, for the most part, except a couple, I think Wilmington's still in. NC State, UNC, East Carolina have all gone online only across the board. And the only students that are still in person are student athletes to practice, grad students, and I believe at East Carolina, allied health, I believe the nursing students and some other people are still on campus.
Yeah, so it's a difficult. It's a difficult spot, especially one thing that George said, being that you're an athlete. How concerned are you about if we have say hypothetically, because I don't want Cal to have a heart attack on the show, or even after the show, is what if we have a spring season and you're looking at 7 or 8 ball games in the spring, and then you turn around and you have 12 in the fall? Do you think I mean, I know you played professionally. Do you think a college athlete can play, 19, 20 games in a year?
That would be pretty taxing on the body. If you put a system like that in place. I hope it doesn't get to that. I had a similar experience going from NFL Europe, playing 12 games, and then going right to the National Football League and playing 16, so I played over 24 games
Wow.
in probably a 9-month period. But the last 2 months of the National Football League season, I got injections every night before the game. I got a Toradol shot just to kind of relax my muscles because my back and everything and hamstrings was getting very tight because all the wear and tear. So we just got to be careful because we know that only 3.5% of the players across the NCAA. I think there's 76,000 players that's participating. That's Division 1, 2, and 3, and only 3.5% are going to be able to make it to the National Football League. So we just got to be careful that we don't put our young people at risk, because we know they love the sport. We know they want to play regardless of what's going on. But someone has to be the adult in the room. And I know I love being entertained by those young pirates out there running around. But at what cost? At what cost? That's the only. If it's safe, I'm all for it. But if there's a chance that there's going to be issues 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, I'm going to have questions.
George, we currently have 30 athletes in quarantine isolation. That's why the Marshall game had to be moved back, or not moved back. We've got to find another day to play it. We're supposed to start the season now against UCF as we sit today. We've already had several other players test positive that have come out of quarantine. I'm just going to throw a number out there and say, let's say 50 out of 105 players, let's say, have been tested positive now, knowing there's 30 players in quarantine. If you've already come that far and you've already exposed that many guys and you've been practicing, if you had to choose, knowing they've already been practicing, knowing so many players have already been exposed and tested positive, would you at that point say it's better to continue now or play in the spring and then play again in the fall? Which one would you say would be more, I don't know how to word it, the lesser of two evils?
Well, I'm not on the ground. I'm out in Wisconsin, so you guys have way more knowledge, and you're way more closer to the action than I am. But making a decision 30,000 feet may not be the most accurate decision. But this is what I don't want to see. I don't want to see a young person 2 nights before a game against, let's say, NC State. The game is on Saturday, and on Thursday test positive for COVID-19, and your starting quarterback is out. That could be tough.
Yeah, and I think that's going to happen. Hopefully not, at East Carolina to our starting quarterback, but I do think that's going to happen somewhere in college football. I think you're going to see a situation where you test on Thursday and you have a cluster and a game has to be canceled 2 days beforehand. I guarantee you that's going to happen somewhere. So that's the thing about playing now. There's going to be a lot of games rescheduled and canceled. And one thing I will, and we mentioned this earlier, John Gilbert and the athletic department is testing and following protocol to a T. One thing I don't think a lot of schools are doing, they just can't be. I don't think other schools are following the contact tracing rule as closely as we are. We had a cluster of roughly 10 players test positive, and we quarantined 30 people because of contact tracing. And other schools, you're hearing 10 players test positive, and they're back practicing a week later. Not all other schools, but some other schools. So I'll give our administration a lot of credit for that. They are following the protocol of contact tracing to the letter of the law.
Right. Or it may be a situation like we had up in Green Bay 2 days ago where we used a laboratory in New Jersey and we had 9 players come back positive, but it was a false positive.
Yeah.
Right. So what about if something like that happens during the season? There's a lot of ifs and what if this, what if that, I don't know.
I do think we're in a situation with Vidant where we're able to test. I think we're testing kids multiple times that test positive to make sure they're actual positive cases. I would certainly hope so. One thing I don't like is the contact tracing rule that the NCAA and the American has in place. Even if you test negative, you got to be quarantined for 14 days if you were a close contact of a kid that tested positive. So in other words, if you're a defensive lineman and you were practicing against an offensive lineman face to face that tests positive, you're close contact, you got to go quarantine for 14 days. Even if 7 days later you're still testing negative, you can't test out.
Okay, well, I got a question for you, and you may not be able to answer it, but what is that magic number for our football team? Is it 5 positives?
Yes.
25, 75, 100? What is that number?
5 is considered anything 5 or above is considered a what's the term they use, Dave? A cluster or
cluster. Yeah, cluster.
Yeah, 5 or above is considered a cluster, and that requires contact tracing.
So if we have 25 young men test positive, what does that mean?
That means you're going to do a lot of contact tracing, and
probably season over.
Probably means if at one time if you have 25 players test positive, that means your contact tracing would probably lead to the whole team, and the whole team would have to be quarantined for 14 days.
So what I'm trying to ask you, what would cancel the season?
At this point, I don't really think anything because so many players have already tested positive. If that makes any sense, once you test positive, you're supposed to have an immunity.
Supposed to.
Right. So
there was a man in Hong Kong that actually has got, this is a second, over the last week, has got the second time.
Supposedly he's got it the second time. Who knows if he really had it the first time. But what if you want to answer truthfully, what will cancel the season? The SEC saying they're not going to play. If the SEC says they're not going to play, that's what will cancel the season. Or if Governor Roy Cooper comes out and says North Carolina State, East Carolina, Appalachian State, you can't play. That's what will cancel the season.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Well, that's the thing is that it's hard to. You always hear about the situation being fluid, George, and the very fact that every time you turn around, it seems almost not even daily anymore. It's almost by the hour. There's this has happened, this has happened, this has happened. So there's so many moving parts, so many things that have hit us. And I tell the guys all the time, we've been dealing this since the middle of March. And it's still, I thought by July, things would start to kind of cool off, so to speak, and we would be headed in the right direction, but it's still going on. I mean, there's 42.
Dave, I think what happened at East Carolina, and I think what a lot of other schools are about to experience, we started class back at East Carolina, Southern North Carolina State, and they're in the same situation. We both started class back at the very beginning of August. So all those students, until classes were canceled and put online for undergrads this past Sunday, all those kids were on campus interacting with the football players and everybody else as they should have been. But a lot of other schools are now just getting into semester or are going to be getting into semester. So I think that's what happened with us is we had those initial surge of students. You had so many parties going on. Kids are going to be kids.
Right.
And I think that's what happened at East Carolina and North Carolina State, and the reason our numbers have gone up so much. And I think other schools are going to see it very soon. I think the SEC saying that they weren't going to start their season until the 26th to begin with was a smart move. because that gives their schools a chance to get in and figure out if they're going to have to go online before they're scheduled to play a game. I think these first 2 weeks of the season, you're probably going to see a lot of games canceled on game week.
George, I want to ask you, as far as we're hearing now with the Big Ten, they're going to start their season maybe Thanksgiving, and then I'm hearing there's going to be like 5 different domes I'm hearing about.
There's all kinds of different rumors about the Big Ten and the Pac-12. Who knows?
Starting January, they play in 5 different domes, from the Carrier Dome all the way to Indianapolis, Detroit, St. Louis. I just want to get your thought. Have you heard about that? I just want to get your thoughts, George, on, do you think that's a good strategy? I mean, it's really, you can tell us how cold it is. You're being in Wisconsin, playing there for the Green Bay Packers. It's got to be extremely cold up there.
Well, it is cold, and that would make things even more difficult if you had to play outside. Domes. When I'm looking at the conferences, the teams that play within the NFC North, that had indoor facilities, that would be Detroit with Ford Field, and Minnesota, they had US Bank. I think Chicago's outdoors. The Packers are outdoors. So I know there's a big push in the Big Ten to continue with the football season. But like I said before, I'm all for it as long as it's safe for the student athlete and the fans. If you're gonna have fans out there, because also something that really will put things in question. If we went out there, Cal, before we walked on the field, they said you have to sign a waiver.
I don't think they can do that.
Excuse me?
I don't think they can do that. I think they've talked about that and they can't do it. For the players, you mean, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't think they can do it. I think that was explored, and I think they went the other way. They offered them opt out. In other words, you can opt out without being penalized.
Give them the extra year. Well, and they're getting an extra year regardless if they and one of the things that comes to mind, certainly with COVID-19, another impact for us. I want to get your thoughts, George. With you, I know you were with Terry Holland here. My concern also, not to put the student athletes at risk, but how do we overcome the last 7 years that we've had struggling with our athletic administration and a program, and financially we are hurting really bad. Like, how can we recover from that? That's one thing that I'm worried about. In addition to the student athletes, we're not saying put the student athletes at risk. We're just saying, how can we recover from that? Is that something financially, like the donors, or, how can, I'm just asking that because I don't want to get our school in trouble, like with doing wrong things as far as money. But I know with like Grady White boats, we had the biggest donation ever for the history of the program. So now it's the Grady White Boats Athletic Complex. Now they put up signs recently. That was a great thing from John Gilbert and company on that. But how do we overcome the financial piece when we're already struggling and then COVID hit us even more?
Well, I'm on a couple of boards. I know the Green Bay Packers went into the COVID-19 with about $600 million in their savings account to help out. I'm also involved with another company on the board. It's called Church Mutual. We insure over 104,000 churches or places of worship around the country. And we went into COVID-19 in a pretty fiscal situation. It just, unfortunately, if you go into this unprecedented, uncertain time with your balance sheet a little shaky, that's not going to bode well for you. And unfortunately, it's all about timing. Unfortunately, when I say we, East Carolina, we were limping into COVID-19.
Right.
And it put us in a very unconventional situation. And I know from a fiscal standpoint, we want to play because of those bills are going to continue to roll in. But also, too, we don't want to set ourselves up with a lawsuit that can set us back as well.
I think one of the biggest problems with not playing is the fact that nobody else in the state at the FBS level isn't playing. I think if the ACC shut it down, I think we probably would too. But you got North Carolina State, Wake Forest, Duke, Appalachian State, and Charlotte all playing also. And, I think it would do so much damage for us from a recruiting standpoint if we were the only FBS team not playing in the state. As far as long-term solutions, George, for our athletic program, John Gilbert mentioned, and I like this idea of taking non-revenue sports out of the American Conference, and somebody like Old Dominion taking their non-revenue sports out of Conference USA, and Appalachian State taking their non-revenue sports out of the Sun Belt, for example, and forming a regional sports conference for non-revenue sports.
Okay.
Seems like they could save a lot of money in the long run by doing that.
Right. With travel and things of that nature, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. But it seemed like all this right here is knee-jerk reaction.
Well, I think that needed to be done all along. I mean, it never made a lot of sense to me to fly the volleyball team out to Houston to play a game.
But that comes with being a part of the conference, right? Because we're all in there together, right? That's why you join the conference, right? You don't want to piecemeal it, right?
But here lately, it's about TV revenue.
Right. If the Southeast Conference invite us, or are we then going to say, well, football is good, but our basketball team, we're going to let them play in the Colonial?
No, well, we'd also do.
I think when we start looking at conferences and looking at a university, we all for one, one for all, right?
It's supposed to be, but unfortunately, TV revenue dictates everything these days. You mentioned the Southeastern Conference. You're talking $40-50 million per school TV revenue, and you could fly a volleyball team to Hawaii if you needed to.
Right. But I was just making making an example.
Yeah.
And whatever we decide to do, we got to be able to. You start talking about long term. How's that going to help hurt us from a recruiting standpoint? Will that hurt us that East Carolina's in the AAC and the rest of our teams are in the Colonial or the Sun Belt? That's I don't know. I'm not the expert, but I know that's going to be you're going to give another team ammunition to recruit against you.
Yeah.
George, one of the things that I wanted to ask you is I think the one big problem we have right now, and Kyle's alluded to it and talked about it before, is that the way that and maybe you can help us because you've been there, not East Carolina, but other schools. I think one of the models we have is the money that we make off of football has been helping for other sports. But for us, I think that the biggest problem we have is we need more corporate sponsors. If we have to name, and sorry for the folks, Dowdy Ficklin and Bagwell Phil folks, but I would like to see if we have to several $1 million or whatever it is to name the stadium, whatever the name of the corporation, whatever. But I think that's what's been missing is that we haven't done enough of that. I was very happy to see Grady White Boats step up and give us a huge donation. And I think there's more local partners out there, community partners that would give us money every single year. And I think that's one of the things missing because we need revenue.
Most definitely. And I think for East Carolina University to survive, it's going to have to be more than just the Pirate Club. We're going to have a lot of public and private partnerships. And I think there's close to about 30 counties that make up the Eastern North Carolina. I may be off a couple counties, but we have to own those counties. When I mean by own, for us brokering partnerships, and not all. And I want to make sure I'm clear here. It's not all about dollars. When I say partnerships, it's all about students. Yes, it'd be nice for Grady White to donate a check. That's great. That sounds sexy. But do they have any adult students can enroll at our university? Because that's where the money's at. Having all your dormitory busting at the seams with students, and we have to build more partnerships internationally. Because one thing about those students, they pay full freight. When George Koonce came to East Carolina from New Bern, North Carolina, if the price tag was $25,000, I'm just throwing a number out there. I only actually had to pay $10,000, and that was covered by the Pirate Club. So you want students that can pay full freight.
Yeah,
One question I had.
Enrollment was up this year. It had fallen down a little bit under Cecil Staten, and it's back up this year. We're close to 30,000. I believe it was the second highest enrollment in university history, which shocked me during a pandemic.
Mm-hmm. And is that traditional undergrad or is that adult online?
Some of both, but undergrad was way up.
Good. That's great. That's great news.
It is. I have one question for you, George. I'm going to put you on the spot. We need a Pirate Club director. Would you come back home to North Carolina, to Greenville area? We would love to have you. I'm a huge fan of you personally and professionally.
You said I didn't hear. You said a direct. I didn't hear the entire.
Exactly.
Right, we don't have a Pirate Club director right now.
We don't have a Pirate Club director.
No executive director of the Pirate Club. As we
okay, I got you. Oh man, I would love to, maybe have a conversation about that. But I think the world of East Carolina University. If I'm not the fit for it, I'll do everything I can to help, to assist, to get the right man or woman for that job, because East Carolina University really gave me the tools that I needed to go out there and earn money for my family. I think East Carolina helped build my foundation, because I think education is the ultimate equalizer. And coming from Eastern North Carolina, went to high school in Vanceboro, telling the story, I don't have to read from a script. It's already in my DNA. So we'll see what happens. And if anything, I'd love to be able to share some names with the search committee to help them get the right person, because our university has gone through a lot the last 7-10 years, and we have a lot of ground to make up, because I hate to see East Carolina University go away. And you might say, George, that'll never happen. But I remember as a little boy, there was a company called Kodak. There was a company called Radio Shack. Cal, I don't know when the last time you've been to a Radio Shack.
Unfortunately, I used to enjoy going to Radio Shack, actually. But unfortunately, they're all gone.
But they're all gone. So basically what I'm saying is there's a big consolidation going on across the country with universities and colleges. They're joining up because it is a very tough market, very competitive. And I just want to make sure East Carolina thrives and not go in the other direction.
You not to change the subject off that, because what you were saying is very important, but just you happened to mention Vanceboro. So did you go? You went to West Craven, not New Bern High?
I went to West Craven High School.
Well, are you familiar with their current principal?
Yeah, I think I know Mr. Wallace. He's a pirate, and Not only does I know him, we grew up in the same neighborhood over in New Bern called Duffyfield. So, yeah. So I
North
know
Carolina
him.
Principal of the Year, and a good man.
He's very talented, and he loves Eastern North Carolina, and he loves the people. And that's one thing I can say about ENC. Eastern North Carolina is a special place. And no matter what neighborhood you come from, or what side of the tracks you live on, we all bleed purple and gold. Whether you went to the university or not, we have a lot of affinity. There's a lot of people that have a lot of affinity for the university because you know someone that went there, and everybody want to see that university succeed. And I'm just happy that we're able to kind of get things back on track. I've heard a lot of great things about our new athletic director. I wish him well. And now we just have to find us a chancellor. I heard Ron is pretty good, but I don't know if he wants to stick around and have the job full time. But we have to get some people in place that is not using East Carolina as a pass through. We want East Carolina to be a destination,
Right.
not a pass through.
But building your resume.
But what do I know? I'm a little kid, like I said, from Vanceboro.
Unfortunately, Ron Mitchelson is going to move on. He does not want the job permanently. There are several rumors out there about who the next chancellor will be. One is a politician named Tim Moore. Dave.
Yeah.
We'll see how that pans out. But need to get leadership. We need a chancellor and a full-time chancellor. I think Mitchelson does a good job, but unfortunately, he doesn't want it full-time. Maybe he's smart to not want it full-time. I don't know. And then, like I said, we need a new executive director of the Pirate Club. You have Ryan Robinson acting as executive director. But supposed to be Gilbert is supposed to be looking for somebody right now to lead the Pirate Club. So it'd be interesting to see where that goes.
Yep, and I wish him all the best. I was involved. I was on the search committee when Terry Holland came on board. I was very good friends with some folks. You probably, I don't know if you remember Jim Talton, who was the chair of the board. Steve Shopity. I don't know if you remember. He was the vice chair. They were all my mentors, and they kind of put me on the search committee to help bring in Terry Holland at the time, because there was a snafu during that search committee. I don't know if you remember that. The search committee passed the name on to the chancellor of someone else, and Jim Talton asked me how will that go over, and I told him after a couple drinks of bourbon, I said I don't know if that would be the right way to go. And so he switched course. I think you may know who that person was that they the name that they passed on.
I know one name. I'm assuming that's who you're talking about. His dad was here for a while.
That's right. He was the finalist.
Yeah.
And his name was passed on, and Jim Talton stepped up and said it was a failed search, and let's start this thing over. And lo and behold, we was able to get Terry Holland, and we all know that he did I'm being facetious. He did a pretty darn good job.
Love Terry Holland. Terry Holland, one of my all-time favorite people to ever have anything to do with this university. I absolutely love that man and miss him to this day. I was really, and nothing against John Gilbert. I don't know, George. I don't know when you were here under Terry. I don't know when you were on the administration if your time overlapped with Scott Weatherby, but Scott was a guy I saw a lot of the same characteristics Terry Holland had, and anyway.
Yeah,
George, we have a comment from one of our viewers. Want to put up here for you.
Okay.
Johnny Gardner says, "You know a lot, George. You're a tremendous representative of our beloved institution. Appreciate your efforts as a student athlete and what you've accomplished in your professional career."
Well, I really appreciate that statement. But if there's any young people listening, whether you're in high school, middle school, if you're in over at Pitt Community College, I just want to let them know, don't give up on your dreams. Because I was a kid growing up in Eastern North Carolina in a single parent household. I grew up in a very socially, economically deprived area. In 1987, my mom was making $8,500 a year raising 4 kids. And I had dreams of playing on Monday night and Sundays. And I didn't get a chance to use a shower until I got to high school. When I was in elementary school and middle school, I asked my mom, I went into the bathroom and I asked her why our shower doesn't work. And she said, because we kind of ran out of money. And that's when I remember going in my room and playing with my imaginary friends, and those were guys that was playing in the National Football League. They were my teammates, and I needed to kind of get away and escape because just looking at my mom and looking at her, looking at the pain in her face when she was telling me that she couldn't afford for me to take a shower. I had to take a bath in a sink. A lot of you probably can't relate to that, but that's where I come from, and that's where I want to kind of talk to the young people out there, because your situation may be similar or worse than what I had, but I was able to make it. East Carolina University gave me a shot. Got a chance to play for the Green Bay Packers. Over 10,000 players have come through the Packer organization since 1919. Only 2 to receive a PhD, and one of them played for the historical East Carolina University. So if that young person, if he was young that made that comment, or if he have a nephew or a son or a niece, let them know that anything's possible if you put God first, and education is important. I just hope they go to East Carolina University, because that will put a smile on my face, and that will be another connection we will have. We're from Eastern North Carolina. We're from North Carolina, but East Carolina kind of gets into your blood, and I'm very fortunate to be able to call Eastern North Carolina my home. But the capital, if it's a state, if the capital of Eastern North Carolina is Greenville, East Carolina University, and I'm happy to be from the capital of Eastern North Carolina.
George, I grew up well, very similar to you. A very poor upbringing. Grew up in a single wide trailer. Couldn't afford to run the electric furnace that was in the single wide trailer, so we had to run kerosene heaters. I'm sure you are familiar with the smell of kerosene, also. And Dave, a little background here for just for fun. I knew Dave when I was a kid. Dave's a few years older than me. He grew up in Williamston also. And Dave's sister and my sister were best friends. And unlike my family, Dave's family had money. So I think the first 2-story house, this is no lie, Dave, the first 2-story house I ever went in my life was your house.
Wow. Well,
and Kyle and Dave, one thing about your story and Dave's story, there's a lot of things going on in our country from a social standpoint, and seem like we're all different. But when we start having these conversations, we find out that we have more similarities than disagreements, and we need more conversation so we can learn more. I know a lot of people talk about diversity and inclusion. That sounds great, but what I like to talk about, Cal and Dave, is diversity and understanding. Because I can't invite you, if you're my neighbor, I cannot invite you to Thanksgiving if I don't understand who you are, right? Because Thanksgiving only happens once a year, and I have people coming over to the family from all over the state, all over the country, and I don't want to. I want that to be a joyous occasion. But if I don't understand who you are, you best believe you're not going to get an invitation, right? Am I being? Am I talking crazy? Or does this make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
No, it's definitely that's one of the biggest days of the year, and especially when it comes to family. And you don't want to have something bad happen when it's one of the best days for me, loving to eat and loving football. And more importantly, the people that you spend the time with, you're exactly right, is the number one.
Right. So therefore, I need to understand my neighbors. I need to somehow, whether it's out there going to the mailbox, or if I'm taking them some banana nut bread back home, it'd be some sweet potato pie or some banana pudding or a couple pieces of flounder or something. There's some way. We have a lot of traditions back in the ENC. We have a lot of traditions that we can lean on that can break that ice and get that conversation going, because we are so similar in so many ways.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and I think a lot of people, live in their own little world, stay in their own little comfort zone, and people tend to also hang out with people of their own, I guess, socioeconomic class. So if you make $100,000 a year, you tend to hang out with other people that make $100,000 a year. And I think it's good to get out there and get to know everybody. And I think a lot of people, just in general, are anything different. Anybody that's different, anything that's out of their normal, what they're used to. I don't want to say they're scared of it, but I don't know how to put it into words, George. But people like to associate with people that are like them, and I think sometimes that's a huge mistake.
Right. But one thing I can say, I've lived in 9 different states. Wow. And had a chance. I went to Israel back in 2012. I'm going to Ghana coming up. I'm going to Africa coming up, and if everything kind of calms down with COVID. One thing, I went to Canada. Me and my wife went to Canada back in August to pick up her dog. She says her dog, so I can go with that. But what I've learned from my travels is that the people in Eastern North Carolina, they're great people, unbelievable people with an extremely, extremely hard work ethic. And what we need to do at this time is come together and have conversations, because Kyle, you and I may differ on the start of the season, when to play, when not to play, the different protocols. But guess what? I'm not going to say, you know what, after I hang up the phone, I'm not talking to Kyle anymore because he doesn't agree with me. You push me to think differently. And that's where leadership comes in. Leadership. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, plus we're a couple of Eastern North Carolina boys that didn't grow up with a lot, so we got more in common than we don't.
Right. So it's okay to disagree.
Oh yeah, absolutely, right? Absolutely, 100%. If you can't agree and respect other people's opinion, you and there's a lot of them out there. You ain't an adult. I don't know. Social media has just showed me so many people that just ain't adults. On both sides of any argument, people cannot have a difference of opinion anymore without just disrespecting each other and trying to shove your opinion down their throat or vice versa. And just, it's okay to have a different opinion. And unfortunately, that's been lost on a lot of people.
Right. And also, too, before, I don't know how much longer we have, but I want to thank Dave and Kyle and Bubba, everyone, for what you're doing. This show is gaining so much traction. And one thing I like about the show, you're putting out facts. That's all I want, and that's all that people want. You just want the facts. You don't want anybody to skew it from a political standpoint. Just speak the truth and just keep doing what you're doing because I'm very proud of you. I get a chance to listen and pop in from time to time, and it makes my heart smile to know that we have someone back in Eastern North Carolina that's just telling it like it is, whether you like it or not. It's the truth.
Well, thank you, George. It means a lot, especially with the fact that we started this because of one of the reasons we started it because nobody else was doing a podcast for East Carolina, but also for the fact that you're a perfect example of somebody that worked really hard on the practice field. If it was the games in the classroom, you have a PhD, but we want those the people that maybe they've never heard of players or they know the players, but they don't know your story or that sort of thing. And so we try to, in fact, next month makes 2.5 years we've been doing the show. And we love the former players, the men and women who've put on the purple and gold. You guys and the ladies mean everything to us, and I appreciate everything. In fact, when Johnny said that about how that you appreciate your efforts as a student athlete and what you've accomplished in your professional career, you're the model citizen when it comes to an athlete and even a student athlete. I mean, getting a PhD, you can't get any better than that.
Right, and but it didn't come easy. And what I've had a chance, I played with guys in the locker room from the University of Southern California, Notre Dame, Tennessee, Alabama, Boston College, Southern Miss with Brett Favre, Dorsey Levens came from, he came from Georgia Tech. But one thing I noticed about those East Carolina players and the pro personnel guys, the scouts and the coaches they were say the same thing. One thing about those East Carolina guys, they call us the glue guys because we keep everything together, and I think that's the ultimate compliment because you need. Back when I was growing up, it was my grandma. No matter what happened in the family, my grandma, whether she cooked a pot of collards or she made some sweet potato pies. You probably don't know anything about that, but she fried some catfish, and all that did was bring everybody together. I don't care if you had your fist balled up or you was upset, but once you grab your little piece of flounder or catfish with some white bread, it started a conversation to diffuse whatever we had going on. So it was that was a beautiful place. It was safe growing up in Eastern North Carolina, and it's left a mark on me that I'll never ever get rid of.
Now you've mentioned fried flounder a few times, George. Can you not get into fried flounder? Are you in Wisconsin? Where are you at? Are you in Wisconsin now?
Wisconsin.
Cal, you don't start picking on me. You already, because you don't ask a question without even knowing the answer because you know there's no ocean. There's only 2 oceans out there by California and Seattle, and out there on the East Coast, South Carolina, North Carolina, all that. I'm in one of those flyover states. I'm in Wisconsin. Only thing we have is a lake. We don't know anything about a perch or we don't know anything about a spot or a croaker or a flounder or anything like that. So stop making me hungry and stop picking on me.
George, we can solve that problem. You can come back and help us in Greenwood, East Carolina, and come back home. We would love to have you, my friend.
I'll be over 350 pounds, but I get the job done.
You look like me. You look like me.
Eating flounder once a week. I'm going to put on some weight in that coleslaw and those hush puppies and those hush. How about old Bees barbecue? Oh my goodness!
Oh, yeah. You know what? We went to Bees a couple weeks ago on a Saturday. Got there at about 11:45, and they sold out a barbecue while we were in line. I was left with barbecue chicken. Disappointing.
Oh.
Was what it was. I'll tell you, I can't, living in Eastern North Carolina my whole life, I've been out to the Midwest a few times. There's just certain things you can't get in different parts of the country. You might could get fried flounder in Wisconsin, but it ain't going to be fresh. You can't get Eastern North Carolina barbecue there. There's certain like collards you mentioned. I'm quite sure they're sparse in Wisconsin. What about rutabagas, George? You grew up eating rutabagas. I would imagine those are hard to come by in Wisconsin.
They've never heard of it. If you said that to them, they'd be looking at you like you're speaking in tongues.
Yeah, it's just the cultural differences. But they'd be looking. Well, you can find them, but they'd be looking for a high quality bratwurst down here and have to settle for Johnsonville.
Right. How about back when I was growing up? I used to put a sweet potato on top of the stove and turn it over every 4 or 5 minutes and cut it open and put some cinnamon and some butter in it, and
oh my God,
that would be my snack before I went to bed. And
wow.
Eastern North Carolina has so many traditions. It's a great place. It is truly a great place, and it's hard to get it out of your DNA. No matter if you lived in 9 different states and gone to 6 or 7 different countries, that's one place you cannot get out of your system.
Yeah,
no doubt. Well, George, thanks for spending the time with us. You're the best, and I didn't realize we'd been talking to you this long, but thanks for the visit. You're awesome, and definitely, I hope that you can. Whenever we have football again, I hope you'll come back, and love to meet you in person. Appreciate for all that you've done for Pirate Nation.
I appreciate it, and thank you for the very rich conversation and discussion that we had tonight. And Kyle, thank you so much for your input. And Dave, you are truly a community treasure, and look forward to meeting you in person.
No doubt. The doctor of defense, everybody, Mr. PhD. That's Dr. George Koonce. George, thanks so much, man. I hope you have a great weekend.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right. Thanks, George.
No doubt about it. George Koonce there, and speaking of a treasure.
George is right about you being a treasure. I have wanted to bury you for a while.
I'm sure you have in the backyard, right? Like, because Dave had to go. Dave had to die. Goodbye, Dave. I do love. I'm getting crucified, probably. I do love the Dixie Chicks, but anyway, politics
aside.
I'm
sorry, Dave. You mean the Chicks?
The Chicks. I'm sorry. Yeah, we have to. Yeah. Well. Anyway, the Chicks. I've loved their music for a long, long time, but I think that tonight's been awesome, and having George Koonce on. I mean, it's not every day you have George Koonce on, or we thought.
Yeah, and difference of opinion. I think he doesn't want to play the college football season, and that's the whole thing right there. That I think the point gets lost between me and some other people. It's not that if they want to cancel the whole college football season, I'm good with it. The problem I have is if East Carolina doesn't play and the rest of the schools in North Carolina play,
right,
it would kill our football program. So
right.
if they want to cancel the whole college football season, I'd be very disappointed, but it would be what it would be. You just move on.
Right. And thank you, Johnny. Appreciate you. One of our super fans, Johnny Gardner. I think George was asking his age. I think Johnny graduated. And help me out, Johnny. Didn't you graduate in 91? I graduated in 95. I think he graduated a few years before me. So about the time that George Koonce was there. So, we can. There's many times you can have George Koonce on and you can talk about his career. But we're doing 50 Pirates in 50 days, and I think a great show. I appreciate Johnny saying that. It feels like it because George Koonce is great, and that's why. He, like Johnny said, he represents our university so well. And I tell you what, I'll say this right now publicly: who's going to be better? Who's going to do a better job? And I don't have any interest in it. Who's going to do a better job? I did get the math right. Man, I feel great now. It is a great show. 91 is when Johnny graduated. But who would do a better job? Think about George Koonce. Think about the legacy that he's had for East Carolina. You can put him in an athletic director. I'm not anti-Gilbert. I'm just saying down the line, if that opportunity, he would be great as an athletic director. I would even put him as a chancellor because I think he's that good. He can go he's a utility player. He was talking about the glue. We need someone like a George Koonce that will rally. He can rally all of us together. When you hear about the slogan, One Pirate Nation, George Koonce is that guy that can give you one Pirate Nation. It wouldn't be something that would happen overnight, But I love George Koonce, and I always have. I've been a huge fan of his, not only professionally, but as I've grown older, I've loved him personally for all that he's stood for and all that he's accomplished, including a PhD. So there you have it.
But Jessica got sick with it. You saying you loved him personally.
Well, I mean, I think he's a good guy. I really do.
Oh, he's a great guy. Yeah, but you might want to reword that.
I mean, you can take it whatever it's worth. I'm not saying I'm interested in the guy. I'm saying that he's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's a great guy and a great pirate. And glad to have him on. And he was obviously a huge star on the defensive side of the ball at East Carolina and the NFL. And he's going on to do great things. And worked at what university is he at now, Dave?
Oh gosh, it's in what's. Oh man, was it Marion? I have to.
We need Bubba.
Bubba can help us.
But Bubba, Marion.
It is Marion. Okay, I was right. Okay, good. Man, I definitely need to end the show before I make a mistake.
All right. You ready to roll?
Yeah, Bubba. Let's promote what we got coming up, and can you chime in really fast? And we'll see if he can. If he can't, then we'll. I know we have. JJ Millbrook is coming up tomorrow for 50 Pirates in 50 days, right?
Yeah, tomorrow morning, J.J. Millbrook, defensive back from the Skip Holtz era, will be catching up with him. He actually came in under John Thompson, was one of several talented players that Coach Thompson and staff brought in, and he was down from around Miami. Now is actually living in Georgia, Louisville, Georgia, and that's about 50 miles or so south of Augusta, he said. So we'll catch up with JJ, and then also sometime early next week. I guess it's next Thursday, the 3rd. Randy Cross, who played for the 49ers and is now a commentator. He's done several Pirate games, or at least a couple Pirate games over the last few years. So
and also Kyle is going to be jumping off the top rope when we have Mike Mooneyham. He's going to be coming on. I know that Pirate Owl is going to be coming on as well, Alan Powell. And hopefully the next week or two, we're going to have him on.
As a guy who's been writing covering wrestling. He's wrote several books.
Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he writes for the Charleston paper, but he's wrote several different books about different wrestlers. So that'll be an interesting conversation with him, talking a little NWA, Jim Crockett Promotions, Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, and all the way up through WCW. And I don't really care to talk too much modern, but if he wants to, we'll do that too.
All right. Sounds good. Bubba, thank you, man. We'll try to put that together with Mike. I know Pirate Owl told me when he's available, so we'll work on that. And I appreciate everybody so much for being on tonight. 50 Pirates of 50 Days, very special edition with Dr. George Koonce. Thanks, George. Appreciate you very much. Thank you, Kyle and Bubba. Until next time, you've been watching and listening to the Sports Objective Podcast. Good night, everybody, and go Pirates.